In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, how is AMD kicking so much tail? Next. Welcome back to yet another fine episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks. I'm Dave Altavilla. Good to see y'all again on the interwebs. With me, as always, the incomparable, the effervescent, the kind of weird Marco Chiappetta. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, brother?
Phantasmagorical. I would define myself in that vernacular today. Chris, are you some other superlative of doing well?
Hey, I've been watching drunk college kids all day, so it has its own kind of entertainment.
I was going to say a day at the zoo. Lovely. Lovely. And Chris Getting with us, also fabulous, effervescent, and guaranteed to entertain with his Kris Kringle beard. So good to see you, buddy, as always. Chris is he works in a law enforcement agency on a college campus. So basically, and he's the IT guy. So basically, he devises technologies to be a total buzzkill. Thanks, Chris. Good job.
Yeah, something like that. No, just have a good time. Leave each other alone. All good.
Don't get sick. Yeah, don't get sick and transmit diseases and all that stuff.
Don't try doing backflips off of sheds. It won't end well.
Oh, yeah,
that kind of thing.
That's a typical college stunt for sure. Yeah. So what's new and exciting in your worlds these days? Marco, let's start with you. I know you've got a lot of things on tap. Before we dive into the meat and the headlines and the topic of discussion today, which will be AMD and their seemingly amazing performance on a lot of levels these days. What's happening? What's new for you, dude?
Not much new for me. I was the last few days playing with my camera gear, getting the supermoon photos. The testing of this ASUS notebook is done. This thing kicks major ass, like a lot of ass. So that review should go up ASAP. I just got in today, after a long wait, the motherboard for the Threadripper Pro processor that we have in to do a review of, and a whole bunch of stuff on the periphery that we're working on. Got some emotes made for our Twitch channel. A lot of little stuff today.
Yeah, man. You guys gotta tune in after this at 7:30 Eastern to our Twitch channel. Hot Hardware Twitch is the name of our channel. Twitch.tv/HotHardware Twitch, I believe, is the URL. Anyways, I'll link it. Valerie is coming up at 7:30 to 9:30. She'll be game streaming. She usually throws down in a little Call of Duty Warzone. So make sure you tune in to Val. She's a hoot. She's a lot of fun. Val Rojas, and she does a great job on the game streaming action. Chris, what do you got going on these days? I think you finished up with something finally.
Yeah, I think I finally caught up with my backlog. So I've got the Alienware Aurora system, all AMD. That's going to be publishing hopefully this week. I don't know what our schedule is looking like.
I think we can
tomorrow. So spoiler alert, it kicks ass, especially when you consider the price relative to what it's up against. It really hangs with some awesome systems that we've already looked at. And then the EVGA capture card review is also ready to go. So, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, we've got lots of good stuff on tap. That should be a fun machine. You've got Ryzen under the hood for sure. What's the GPU under the hood that's coming up tomorrow? I haven't looked at it yet.
So it's got a Radeon RX 6800 XT. So it's all AMD all the way down.
Beauteousness. Cool. Ryzen and Radeon going on in the Aurora from Alienware and Dell. Stay tuned for that tomorrow. Chris will be launching that. I am playing around with something from Lenovo these days. This is going to be hard to get on the screen, but because it's kind of big. But anyways, this is the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Carbon 9th Gen. Okay, Gen 9. Beautiful.
Look at that screen.
Yeah, absolutely gorgeous display. And this is a 4K display. And it has Tiger Lake on board. So I am looking forward to digging into this bad boy shortly. Best keyboard in the laptop business, in my humble opinion, from the folks at Lenovo. That's the ThinkPad X1 Carbon, which has been a favorite of mine in model years past. We shall see if it continues that lineage, but I'm, usually pretty impressed with the things that Lenovo does in the X1 Carbon line, and with Tiger Lake under the hood, it should be a screamer, as they say. And by the way, I love how you guys just throw the A word out there, kicking ass left and right from you guys, but we can't put it in the headline of the video.
It slipped out, and what are you going to do? It's out there now. It's in the ether.
All right, that's why people need to tune into the show so they get the real things that we can't otherwise publish.
There you go. Yeah, we try and keep it PG-13-ish around here. Sometimes we sort of waver into the R, rating, but we keep it clean. So yeah, no, that'll be some good stuff we'll be getting to shortly. Why is AMD kicking so much tail, or if you'd like to call it like you see it, kicking so much ass? Because they definitely are. We'll be getting to that shortly. The X1 Carbon has always been solidly built. I would agree, Oscar. Good machine for sure. But let's talk about some quick, tell it like it is. That's what we try and do. That's what you pay us for, right? Hopefully. Anyways, hey, so let's dive into a couple of the headlines real quick before we get into AMD, because there's a lot to unpack with AMD. There's, impressive earnings performance. And then we really want to get into the meat of how they're pulling this off, because there's some impressive stuff going on. But before we do, some interesting happenings around the web. Samsung stepped out with a bunch of stuff. I'll drop some links today. The Samsung, hang on one second, Galaxy Book Pro and Pro 360 laptops on the prowl with Tiger Lake and AMOLED displays. If you dig the OLED, Samsung makes some sweet OLED powered by Intel Tiger Lake. So 11th gen core, 13 and 15-inch machines, looking thin, light, svelte, and 16 by 10 aspect ratio. But looking good. What do you guys think about that before we move on? And they've got another one with Tiger Lake H under the hood too.
Yeah, man. So really nice machines, super thin Samsung designs with basically the screen technology from their phones. You can make an argument to make the best phone displays, and that tech for the first time is coming to PCs. So good stuff right here. Yeah, man. Yeah. And they did also step out with a gaming variant as well. The Galaxy Book Odyssey gaming laptops combines Tiger Lake H. Excuse my lack of speaking ability. GeForce RTX 3050 Ti as well on board. Kind of interesting. Like, that machine has the hardware chops, but I'm looking at the design and I'm not getting a gamer vibe at all from it. Kind of looks like a I hate to say MacBook, but kind of looks like an aluminum clad MacBook like design. But Tiger Lake H, which is a 35 watt variant of Tiger Lakes. So it's going to have, actually should have 8 cores, right? Right? I believe so. Up to 8 cores. I'm wondering what the heck a 3050 Ti is.
Yeah.
Unannounced GPU in the spec list.
That's interesting. I kind of just spit that out and didn't even think about it, but you're absolutely right. That's what's in the headline, and that is actually what is detailed. I wonder what NVIDIA had to say about that.
So someone's getting fired today.
But it's in there. I mean, we're reporting on it. And Tiger Lake Edge, 8 core 16 thread configuration of Tiger Lake Edge, and your choice of RTX 3050 or RTX 3050 Ti discrete GPU. NVIDIA has yet to announce either GPU, but we've seen leaks from the likes of ASUS and Lenovo. Samsung just goes and puts it out in a press release.
There you go.
Wild.
Yeah.
But good stuff there. And then some reviews to check out, which we have. Don't they look like MacBook in this category? Yeah, well, I mean, the other ones didn't, but I would say this one does look a little clonish. But yeah, so here's another one that just went up today, this week, I should say. And that is the Falcon Northwest Talon, a killer bird of prey gaming PC. Actually went up Friday, excuse me. And this baby is powered by Intel's 11th gen Rocket Lake S. So Core i9 11900K 8-core CPU, boosts to 5.3 gigahertz. And Falcon Northwest, if you're not familiar with them, they've been around forever. They are I think maybe the original boutique system builder, if you want to call them that, the OG boutique system builder. They were around, I think, before Main Gear. And just build some killer systems. We know Kelton and the folks over there, great people. That is a beautifully built machine. Check out the review there. On board is a GeForce RTX 3090, 24 gig GPU, 2 terabyte Samsung 980 Pro NVMe SSD. I mean, it is just dialed and puts up some beastly numbers. Thoughts, gentlemen?
I think we could say it has Marco approved cabling.
Yeah.
And we can also say that if you like the look of this rig, keep an eye on HotHardware in the next few days.
Yeah.
That's about as much as we could say so far.
We can say that we're working on some giveaway action with the folks at Falcon Northwest, and that's all we can say.
And when you see it, when you see the customizations, you're going to love it.
Yeah, we can say that too. Yes. So this is the Talon in review, and Paul Lilly chalked that one up for us. Great machine for sure. Scored high marks with Paul. And yes, you could eat off the insides. It's so immaculate with that cable management and design inside. Just really well done. And we will be teaming up with Falcon Northwest on a different machine that you will be blown away by just from the design alone, the aesthetics. We'll just leave it at that. It'll be fun.
Yep.
It'll be fun. Falcon was around when Main Gear wasn't even a thought. Ha! Wow. There you go, Tuan. Thanks for that little tidbit.
I remember being in high school reading about Falcon when I was sneaking my PC mags into my textbooks.
Oh, really?
Nice. Yeah, man.
Good stuff. Yeah, you're right. They've been around for a long time. Definitely the OG boutique builder out there. Good folks as well. And Chris, have we talked about before we move on to the next quick headline? Have we talked about are you imbibing any beer today?
I am not yet. I've got to make it a way through the cast, and then we'll see. Okay,
I've got some Wachusett Wally going on right now, which is a local brewery, and this is my favorite Wormtown Brewery, different brewery. Piece of mass in every glass. Wormtown is slang for Worcester out here, the town of Worcester that's affectionately referred to as Wormtown. So that's what's going on with the beer. We have beer 30 here on the stream. This is kosher. Don't worry about it. I'm not breaking any rules. All right, and let's talk about a couple of quick laptop mobile machines, and then we'll get to the AMD goodness that is headlining for this cast. Interesting little review put up by, interesting little machine and a review of it put up by Ben Funk this week. Dell Latitude 7320 Detachable Eclipsing the Surface Pro. That's what we said. And this is an interesting machine for sure. It does rock Intel 11th Gen Tiger Lake on board, a 12-watt variant of that. It is very much designed like a Surface Pro with that magnetic attached type cover. It has active pen stylus support, so 10-point multi-touch support in the display. Beautiful 3x2 aspect ratio for this machine. So it's 1920 by 1280, I believe, resolution. Yeah. Just a cool machine. Performs really well. We actually didn't have the ability to compare it directly to a Surface Pro 7 because we haven't had one of those in recently to test. But it is it's a pretty snappy machine for what is essentially a 2-in-1 detachable tablet design, and weighs 1.8 pounds. I mean, just a wafer of a thing. Wicked expensive, we will say that too, unfortunately, starting at $1,549. It's not cheap, right, Marco?
Yeah, exactly. On the plus side, they completely outdid Microsoft in almost every way. Screen's not quite as high res as the Surface Pro 7, but something we talked about on a previous cast is how conservative Microsoft has been adopting new CPU platforms. So you can't get an 11th gen, Surface. You can get an 11th gen Latitude 7320 detachable with all of the latest platform stuff. So, you know, a nice fast M.2 SSD, 802.11ax, Thunderbolt, you know, an 11th gen processor that's only 12 watts. So like, you know, nice low power processor. Just if you like that form factor, that detachable form factor, this, you can make an argument this is the most powerful one you can buy.
Yeah. Yep. If you need that detachable, you know, flips into a tablet, you know, has stylus support, all that goodness. Probably the best equipped on the market currently. Dual Thunderbolt 4. It had a PCI Express Gen 3 SSD in there, but I believe the M.2 slot should support PCI Express 4 because it is Tiger Lake. So that platform should be there. And it's actually serviceable. You can, you know, pop 10 screws on the back and actually get inside. So, and in there, you know, the storage is not soldered on the board. You have an M.2 socketed, you know, SSD, and then even the Wi-Fi NIC. I believe memory is soldered. Chris, any thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm often tempted with the idea of getting a Windows tablet, but I don't know that it's necessarily the form factor I want to live with, at least as long as you're relying on a kickstand. If you got a model that had the detachable keyboard, like I think the Surface Book has, where it's a more of a rigid hinge and you're not dealing with the kickstand, I think that is better. But as far as, you know, the tablet platform goes, this is a very well equipped machine, and I do like that it is serviceable. Because again, with so many tablets, they're gluing a ton of stuff in there to get it together. So it's nice to not see that with this.
Yeah, with the tablet thing, you're usually talking if you need to repair, you're talking a brick. You don't repair, you toss out, and that's unfortunate. So this does not have that issue. As you can see, you can get right in there, and even the battery, you know, is serviceable and replaceable. Obviously, if you can get in there and get at it, you just, you know, pop that ribbon cable and away you go. So yeah, it's got some shelf life built in as a result of that as well. So good stuff. But yeah, you got to be into that form factor, the kickstand, the lappability, as a Microsoft executive once coined a term, the lappability. I don't know how lappable the kickstand is, right, Marco?
Yeah, it's not lappable for me. I love the idea of how thin and light they are, but I couldn't use them well on the road. So my laptop bag, when I was traveling, I haven't been on a plane in over a year, always had my clamshell notebook and a Surface. And I used the Surface for media consumption during the flights, and then I really never touched it when I had to get real work done.
Yeah. But some folks love them. I mean, they sell like hotcakes, so you know. All right. Well, let's move on to one more, and this one actually we didn't get a chance to talk about last stream because we had Frank Azor, our buddy Frank Azor from AMD, on the cast talking Radeon Adrenaline drivers. But the ASUS ROG Zephyrus G15, a mighty Zen 3 gaming laptop. There it is, right there. I actually kicked the tires on it for our video coverage. And good old Ben did the full review with the deep dive analysis. Impressive machine for sure. Just a hair over 4 pounds, like 4.25 pounds, 4.19, I think to be exact. And yeah, Zen 3 under the hood, a 5900 HS, Ryzen 9 5900 HS, 8-core CPU, and a GeForce RTX 3070 with 8 gig of RAM. That RTX 3070 is configured with an 80-watt TGP, the GPU power envelope, and so it is scaled back if you compare it to like an Alienware M15 R4 with a 3070. They tend to push, I think it's like 115 watts. This is an 80-watt TGP. So you see some spots in gaming where it comes in behind the Alienware, and then some spots in CPU or it's either matching or just ahead. But really solid performance, and you know, actually reasonably priced, starting at $14.99. $17.99 is tested. Whole lot of firepower, and you know, just a well-built machine. What do you guys think? Have you had a chance to check this baby out?
I have. I think that thing's awesome. That for a gaming notebook, That's how gaming notebooks should look. That complete over the top, gaudy designs. Nobody wants to carry that around and show that off. This is a machine that can get the games done and get work done without drawing too much attention. I dig it.
Yep, looks very refined.
Yeah. Enrique Perez says 16 gigs should be the standard for a high-end laptop. I tend to agree with you these days for sure. And
I have to say, so my rule of thumb with memory sizing is you want 2 gigs of RAM per thread if you don't know anything else. That seems to be the best rule of thumb I can come up with, because if you need 32 gigs of RAM, you can probably make do with an 8-core 16 thread processor and be fine. If you only need 16 gigs of RAM, you can probably get done what you're going to do with a 4 gig or with a 4-core 8-thread CPU. So I try to keep that in mind when I'm speccing out a system, is to try and keep to that, unless I have a particular need that I know is going to be skewed one way or another.
Yeah. I haven't thought of it that way, by the way. That's an interesting observation, but I think that probably makes sense. 2 gigs of RAM per thread. NavJack27 reminds me of the MSI Prestige. Actually, I've seen the Prestige. It is similar. It also does have this machine, the ASUS machine, does have what they call an ergo lift hinge. So when you tilt the display back, it lifts the rear of the machine up, which I like actually, because it angles the keyboard at you a little bit as well on a flat surface. So it gets ventilation underneath, which is really, I think, the intention of the design. It's more about thermals and ventilation, but does angle the keyboard up so it works ergonomically as well. And then they didn't go too gaudy on it, and copious ports, as you can see there. This is AMD platform, so it's USB. I think it limits to USB 3.2 Gen 2, but versus Thunderbolt, which isn't available. That's an Intel thing, but so 10 gigs a second over those USB ports. But really well decked out. Tons of horsepower under the hood. And Ben Sun says ASUS makes good lappies. I would tend to agree. It's a good machine for sure. I think it would serve you well. Little gotcha on the RAM, and not uncommon for these thin and light machines. That's a great picture. Thanks, Chris. Good straight man there. Getting under the hood is not hard. You can see the cooling system's pretty solid, man. It's a well appointed cooling system. Heat pipe, dual fan. Storage is available. M2 socketed SSD there. Battery, all that good stuff. But as you can see, well, actually, if you look right in between the two fans, right in the nest of heat pipes, there's one SODIMM socket slot. So there's 8 gig of RAM, yes, soldered to the board. And then there's one SODIMM socket. So that's an 8 gig stick in there. And if you drop a 16 gig or a 32 gig stick, if you're so lucky to find a 32 gig SODIMM, you would have an asymmetrical memory loadout. We have dual channel in this 8x8, and you would still have the dual channel, but one of them it would be asymmetrical. Obviously, you'd have if you had a 16 gig in that SODIMM socket. Right. So something that I don't know what that would do to performance. Do you guys? I haven't really thought that through. But anyway,
it's dual channel for the symmetrical size. But I wonder if if there's another DIMM socket under the keyboard. I had an old ASUS notebook where there was one DIMM socket under the keyboard and one accessible on the bottom. But I don't know. I didn't get my hands on this machine.
Yeah,
so I'm not sure.
I'm trying to look there to see if I can see where the DIMMs would be. The
DIMM is
well, I see the DIMM right here.
SODIMM. Yep.
Where the soldered on memory chips would be.
Yeah, it's a flip side of the board. It's underneath the keyboard. So it's a flip side of that board. That's the problem. We only tear these down so much, and you don't want to get into the muck too much, and pop off the bottom cover and see what you see, kind of thing. But all right, well, so check it out, the ASUS ROG Zephyrus G15. Great machine if you're looking to get into the Ryzen equipped gaming laptop scene. We do not think it will fail you. We gave it a recommended, and well appointed, good performance, and solid machine for sure. Also pretty good acoustically as well. Doesn't make a racket even when it's loaded down. So we dug it from the folks at ASUS. All right, well, shall we move on to the theme of the day, the lead topic of the cast, gentlemen?
We should.
We should. All right, I'm going to drop this link in the chat just to start us off. And I think everybody probably caught this headline today. AMD Q1 2021 earnings shatter multiple records as data center sales skyrocket. Now, there's some nuance there. They had a bang up quarter, generally speaking, and data center was actually Dr. Lisa Su, the CEO of AMD, went on record to say data center sales more than doubled. But that was all the detail we could get. We didn't get numbers. AMD doesn't break that out, data center specific numbers. But earnings up 93% year on year, net income up 94% year on year. Collective revenue, enterprise, embedded, semi-custom. So that's that grouping that I was talking about where they don't break it out. They've got enterprise, they've got embedded, semi-custom lumped together. And embedded semi-custom includes something that's very not enterprise, and it's their console business, the semi-custom chips that they sell to Microsoft and Sony. But that segment of the business was up nearly fourfold year on year. So $1.3 billion versus $348 million the same quarter last year. So talk about some serious growth in revenue and, just general, bottom line performance, net income up 94% as well. Just unbelievably great numbers. The stock, by the way, didn't do much today. The market was weirded out. It was ridiculous. I think there was some sentiment in the tech sector in general that affected it. It wasn't reflective of AMD's performance. They also guided up as well. So AMD anticipates Q2 revenue to be around $3.6 billion for Q2 this year, plus or minus $100 million, which would represent an 86% year-over-year increase and a 4% sequential increase. So they, guiding up 4% versus this blowout quarter that they just posted. And for the full year, AMD increased its guidance from 37% to annual growth of 50%. So they're like, yeah, we're kicking ass, then we're not stopping, is the bottom line. They're guiding up. So, if you are tracking this company from a financial standpoint, disclosure, I don't think any of us hold positions currently in AMD. Is that fair to say, gentlemen?
That's correct.
I don't hold positions anywhere.
Same.
I hold a position in my chair.
I do have some positions in the tech sector. Applied Materials is one to look at, by the way. I have some Applied Materials. They make semiconductor fab equipment and supply chain stuff, and that's a good bet these days with the shortages going on. But anyways, I digress. Fabulous stuff, and our question is, how are they pulling this off? And let's talk about that. Let's unwrap it. Marco, I'm gonna hand it to you to sort of tee it up. I teed it up actually, but I guess maybe go ahead and hit that first drive. Drive for show, putt for dough, right? So go ahead. Let us know your thoughts, and then we'll dig in deep.
So there's a couple of things, we just had a comment from Ben on other folks that have had bang up quarters too. So if we step back super high level, the PC had a huge resurgence, for, I think this last quarter was the largest growth in nearly a decade in the PC sector. So, when tablets and smartphones hit and everyone predicted the death of the PC, and I was on every podcast saying, you're crazy, you can't really get any real work done on anything else. Looks like I was right. And all those other devices, yes, tablets and phones are great. We use them every single day, but they're complementary devices. They're not the things that most people will use to get real work done throughout the day constantly. Now, so you have tons of PC sales again, finally have the PC booming, partially because I think everybody realized, wow, I need a new PC working from home. But over and above that, Oh, go ahead, Chris. I don't
I was
want to
just going to say there's more to that too, because for years, the people who were buying computers tended to be like, I don't want to spend more than $600 and just got whatever special discount thing they could get at the big box store. And, then when it came time now this year where suddenly they need to do all their work on it for real, it wasn't keeping pace. So got to upgrade.
Yeah, there you go. And then, so one other thing to mention, you mentioned, the booming data center sales and the semi-custom, but I have a little note here from Drew Prairie. They had year-over-year growth in all of their businesses,
right?
And it was driven by strong demand in data center and semi-custom. So, you have Ryzen desktop CPUs kicking butt. Ryzen mobile now, I think with Ryzen 4000 series mobile, the market was tentative, although the numbers looked really good. All the OEMs and ODMs were a little tentative because AMD wasn't playing in that space too hard for the last few years. But Ryzen 5000 drop-in replacement, even better numbers. And I think there's a lot more confidence in AMD now too. So that's going to be really strong for them as well in the mobile segment. You can't buy consoles because they're selling out everywhere. So they're going to sell every one of the semi-custom chips. And I think we don't have new Threadrippers because AMD can probably sell every EPIC that they can make as well. So all of those dies are probably going into EPICs right now. They're just doing well on every front. And that doesn't even talk about graphics, the strong return to high-end graphics as well. They're firing on all cylinders right now.
I agree. The execution, it can't be denied on, across the entire company portfolio. And that's obvious. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about, the pandemic infused demand, if you will, for lack of better words. I mean, let's face it, the pandemic was bad for people on a lot of levels. It was great for the technology sector and the demand. Folks are staying home, they're gaming, they need to up their game for work from home with machines, all of that. And when you add in AMD's execution, in addition to that environment, to that dynamic, you have a compounded effect. So it makes perfect sense, the whys and wherefores. I guess the thought is, how did they get here? And let's unpack that a little bit, because I think it's important to sort of take note, and their competition, whether you talk about Intel or NVIDIA, will be, trying to re-execute back to recapture some of this gain in market share that they're obviously taking. And when you talk about data center market share, that's an interesting data point for AMD as well, because it takes a long time to chip market share away from, a data center customer base. The gestation period, the development time to win sockets, deployable server sockets, is longer than a consumer product. And so, we knew this was coming. I mean, when you talked about the disparity between core density per socket in the data center with AMD EPIC versus Intel at the time, certainly when, Zen 2 EPIC came and you had 64 cores in a socket versus, I think, Intel topped out at 28. Now with, Ice Lake Xeons from Intel, they're upping to 40 cores per socket versus AMD's 64 cores, and the performance, the IPC lift certainly brings that parity or closer to parity in terms of performance per socket for Intel versus AMD. But there's no question that pipeline was being filled for probably a year plus now, maybe close to 2 years. And finally, we were getting a sense that those design wins are taking off for revenue. Is that a fair assessment, you think, Marco?
I think so. I think if I'm remembering correctly, AMD's goal was initially to hit double digits in data center, because they weren't playing there at all since Opteron. That has happened. And I think the ultimate goal is to exceed where they were with Opteron years ago and get up into the 30-40% range. I think they could totally do it. Like, Ice Lake just came out, and in terms of the total platform, yes, competitive. In terms of the perf per socket, it still loses. Yep. So I think, AMD still has lots of potential growth in that segment, like lots of growth. And then to just build on that, I was trying to think out, I have one concern with AMD innovating in terms of core design, because Zen 2 to Zen 3, it was great performance uplift, but it really wasn't a radically different architecture. They tweaked the cache, made some changes based on what they learned, with the previous design, but it wasn't a radical departure. If all they have left is to optimize the low-lying fruit moving forward, Intel has room to catch back up, because, that sleeping giant is awake and they have new leadership. We'll see what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But the flip side is, Intel's talking about Alder Lake lately, because that's coming. That's supposedly going to, revamp the desktops and get core counts back up. But if the rumors are true and we're looking at 8 high performance cores from Intel and 8 of their low performance cores, AMD's got 16 of their high performance cores on the desktop already.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what does that mean to the dynamic? And if you have to deal with all of the scheduler issues and all the other issues with, a non-symmetrical design like that. So, yeah, things just are, not only has AMD executed well, things are looking good for AMD in the near to midterm as well. So it's just lots of goodness, all around, basically.
Yeah. Chris, I think you're probably looking to jump in. We have a couple of comments that I want to toss in that are interesting as well. But go ahead, Chris. And I've got some thoughts on the chiplet sort of architecture that AMD really ushered in, with Ryzen back in the day. But go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I don't probably have as much to say, but I think it's definitely a show of the leadership that AMD has in place, that has been able to guide year over year, as they started with, the first gen Ryzen, and building on that with each iteration to now we're seeing with the 5000 series Ryzen chips, incredible performance that's absolutely on par with Intel, if not, higher in some places and competitive. So very strong there. Doing the same thing on the GPU side again, where they are giving Team Green a run for their money. And that means that there's a lot of very hard decisions being made behind the scenes, because even with as much money as these companies have, they can't do everything. I'm sure that their wish list for what they want to release in a product is 1 million pages long, and to be able to cut that down and execute, it speaks well for the leadership, obviously their engineering teams, and then their ability to convey that through marketing and other aspects of the company. It just seems like they're really all in sync at all levels of AMD right now.
Yeah, and I made some notes here. I'd agree with you there. Certainly on the marketing side of it, I've made some notes here that we should probably step through quick, because I think there's some interesting points. And like, how did AMD get here? Mm-hmm. Whether you look at architecture and the decisions like that you talked about, the hard decisions made back in the day, I think that the chiplet evolution and the execution of that design, where they're taking 7 nanometer die now on the CPU side and integrating them in a multi-chip module design. That is what started this all off. What allowed them to scale core density, whether you're talking desktop or server sockets. And so, Marco, you touched on a very good point. Intel's coming at it in a different way. Intel has, gone, well, haven't gone on record, but they've actually been evangelizing the fact of, multi-chip module designs, chiplet designs, Foveros packaging, advanced packaging technologies, which Intel does very well, by the way. All of these higher levels of integration and ways to carve up CPU design architectures that AMD took a risk with, and that bet paid off. What are your thoughts about that? Moving forward with Intel shifting gears now to a totally different, potentially not monolithic, design moving forward, and then Alder Lake with the mixed core topology. It's definitely a fascinating dynamic to watch.
Yeah, so I think that the chiplet architecture is smart, because there are parts of the chip that just don't scale with process. So you want to use the leading edge process for the parts of the chip that will scale, and then use a different process, perhaps that has more capacity and is more economical to manufacture, for the parts of the chip that don't. if you have that fast fabric to link things up. We know Intel and AMD both have it. Obviously, AMD has been, all of their chips basically, except for mobile, are, multi-chip modules, or using chiplets, I should say, not multi-chip modules. But I think the other thing to consider throughout all of this is Intel went 7 generations, right? 7 generations with 4 cores on the desktop. They went from Linfield all the way to the 7700K with quad cores because there was no competition, right?
Yeah.
And as soon as AMD realized they had a competitive architecture, they decided, and we had HEDT stuff, high-end stuff with more cores, but I'm talking mainstream. AMD decided the mainstream needed more cores. They turned the screws to Intel, and look what they did in 4 years, since what was it, 2017 when first Ryzen came, right?
Yep.
I don't think any enthusiast would buy a quad core for a desktop right now. I don't think anyone would consider. I don't think anyone would consider less than 6 cores right now. Like a Ryzen 5, if you're an enthusiast, is a great CPU, and from there on up is where enthusiasts want to play. And and I know enthusiasts are a small part of the market, but we are vocal, and we're the ones that make the decisions for the rest of the market. So yeah, they see what the enthusiasts are doing, and that's where they want to be. So it's a combination of making those bets and having an architecture and design that can scale basically all the way up and down the stack. From every EPYC to every desktop part, that's the same 8-core die on AMD's in AMD's portfolio, whereas Intel doesn't have that luxury. So and then Intel, there's no other way to say it. They sat on their hands and decided quad cores were enough when they really weren't, and didn't innovate for many generations in the mainstream. And it is what it is. Then we see how it played out.
Yeah. It's funny. I said I had made some notes, and to Chris's point and to your point, I had solid, engaging grassroots effort in marketing with strong social signals. They have done, AMD has done very well with the whole, back in the day, the whole red team concept, which has been disbanded, but they now, they have a tight coupled voice in marketing and in the social spheres that they do very well with. They have an unnatural support, partially, I think, because of the underdog, obviously, position that they were in, that they're no longer in. Oddly enough, ironically enough. And then the other thing I made a note of, Marco, which is exactly what you said. I said direct competition unchallenged for too long, and it got complacent. And I think that's, so what do you have? You have a situation where, back in the day, prior to Zen showing up, AMD was, a sneeze away from going under. I mean, if you remember that, they were in dire straits, and then turn this thing around in this, when Lisa Su stepped in, Dr. Su stepped in and really just hit the cover off the ball and had nowhere to go but up. So now we're seeing these blowout quarters because there was the competition had whatever 90 something percent market share or more, 100% market share in some cases. It was just, AMD wasn't enjoying that kind of market share. And so every percentage growth they take is one that they didn't have. And it's just, it's a hockey stick right now.
Yeah. So while we're talking competition, another 3-letter company that we've talked a bit about on the cast before, ARM. So obviously ARM was able to spring forward, especially on the mobile side, now that we're seeing with the MacBooks, and what Apple's done with their silicon on using ARM's intellectual property. But, it kind of seemed like the Reaper was kind of coming for x86 in general. But do you think that AMD is now firing well enough to keep x86 alive? Do you think that AMD could potentially move to ARM cores in the future? Do you think they're flexible enough for that? I don't see Intel making that transition as easily. AMD potentially more potential with that?
Interesting. Yeah, that's a whole different kettle of fish, the whole ARM question. And Man, yeah, no. I mean, you saw what Apple could do, and by the way, those aren't off the shelf ARM cores. Those are custom tuned
Very
ARM.
custom,
ARM cores. They license the instruction set, but they're not licensing an off the shelf core. They hand tune that, and that's, by the way, what Qualcomm intends to do with the acquisition of Nuvia. So there's all kinds of forces coming in now, man, where, especially in the mobile side, where, power is a much more of a concern. The threats to Intel, to AMD as well, but just in general to the x86 architecture, I think you're right. It's going to be interesting to watch. I think, if you look at how AMD is executed and the ability from a chipset architecture and as process advancements go, and even the concept certainly of Alder Lake, where you have that mixed topology of big little. Yes, I think x86 can stave off ARM, but RISC versus CISC, but it's going to be fascinating to watch. I don't want to make any bets in that. What do you think, Margo?
I think they're going to continue to coexist. We ARM just announced, I think it was yesterday, that 2 days ago, that the embargo lifted on the new Neoverse N1 and V1 and N2. I think were the new core technologies, and they are going to offer monumental performance improvements over previous gen stuff for just the off the shelf designs. So, I think there's things that x86 and Intel and AMD are good at. There's things that ARM are good at. There's things that GPUs are better for, things that FPGAs are better for, and that's going to continue to kind of fluctuate. And because the things are nuts right now with AI too. Algorithms are changing constantly. Power requirements, size of data centers. Everything is in flux right now, and everything is having monumental growth. So we have no idea where it's all going to settle. But I do think ARM and x86 coexist for the foreseeable future.
Oh,
for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't think one's knocking the other off.
Yeah. And I totally lost my train of thought. You guys were talking about something else I wanted to pitch in on.
Well,
I forgot what it was. Oh no, I know what it was.
Go ahead.
I wanted to drop in something about GPUs, and we were talking about AMD's advancing and maybe not having too much low-lying fruit left to optimize on the CPU side. But on the GPU side, NVIDIA is just a monster, right? But if you look at Big Navi and you look at what they did with their first gen ray tracing architecture, I'm not sure if it scales linearly, but if AMD literally kept the same GPU design and just added an extra ray accelerator per CU and got a 33% uplift in ray tracing performance, they're right there. But what happens, I'm sure they've learned a lot from these first designs too. What happens if they do that and have an IPC boost or, an efficiency boost for the ray tracing? They would then have an architecture that's right there with NVIDIA. So the way that AMD took on Intel in CPUs and clawed their way back to this kind of leadership position, there's potential for them to do that in GPUs. Now, NVIDIA is way more aggressive and agile than Intel, or at least, Intel has new leadership. Maybe Pat Gelsinger is gonna put the gloves on. We'll see. But I don't know, man. AMD could really rock it in GPUs too in the next couple of years with some architecture. Not a complete overhaul. Like, they have a really strong base design to work from.
Yeah, no, that's going to be an interesting battle for sure to watch. You make a good point. I mean, I think I would certainly play some bets with Intel getting into the GPUs. I think that's going to be interesting to watch. And by the way, I do have my Odyssey shirt on. Thanks, NavJack27, for noticing that. I think the Odyssey is coming back, and it's going to be an interesting, fun fight in the trenches. But you make a point about NVIDIA. That company is just, they do not stop. Relentless is a word I think of when I think of NVIDIA. So, but yeah, it is, the flip side of that is AMD's leadership now with Dr. Su behind the wheel, man. they're going to go at it too, and they're going to execute. I think it's going to be a whole new world in GPUs, and we'll have 3 choices, and can't wait to see what DG2 can do. I think first effort out of the gate is, it's not going to be, super flagship killer home run no matter what, but I think they're going to bring value, and that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I think they're going to make a strong entrance as well.
Yep.
If by some miracle Intel's first flagship GPU took on the top end from NVIDIA and AMD, that would be monumental. So I agree with you. I don't think that happens out of the gate. But, if they make something competitive right in the meat of the market there, somewhere between a 3060 and 3080 in there, and they're price competitive and feature competitive, and they have some new, twists that relate to consumer experience, we'll see. Could be some interesting times ahead.
Yeah. What's interesting to me about Intel's potential offering is that they are really good at not only silicon design, but board design and integration and all that stuff. The whole an ecosystem, and manufacturing chain with Intel is super strong. I mean, they are a machine in that regard. So they're, fabbing it externally, and, they need to get that kind of, bleeding edge process to do it on a big honking GPU from a silicon standpoint. But I think everything around it for Intel is strength as well. So that'll be fun to watch. Let's see. We get all kinds of comments. Are we missing anything that we should be answering some questions on?
Well, Navjack says he's making a guess and says 3060 levels on DG2, maybe 3070 with DXR. So we already know DXR is a yes. Intel has said ray tracing. I am going to say it's going to be higher than this. I just have a feeling. Maybe not everywhere. I have a feeling the bulk of the perf might be in that range, with some areas that shine better than others. I'll say it like that. That's just my gut. Intel's going to be able to probably show some numbers that are going to make folks scratch their head and go, wow. But I don't think they pull it off across the board. And
Tuan on the record here.
Yeah,
saying he knows nothing. Just
Tuan now works at Intel now, so he can't say anything.
Right,
doesn't know anything.
I think the other thing that will be tough for Intel to catch, as it was for AMD out of the chute, would be the ray tracing performance. And so where NVIDIA has enjoyed 2 generations of RT cores now. These guys are coming out, AMD just came out with their first generation RT Core product, or Ray Accelerator product. Intel will be on their first, cutting their teeth on it as well. I think that's a different animal from an acceleration standpoint, from a silicon engine standpoint. And so it would surprise me if Intel's ray tracing performance is on par, GPU to GPU, price point to price point. But you never know. If you look at XE in Tiger Lake right now for traditional raster, Intel is very strong considering the size and power of that GPU. That just scaled up with faster memory, and that's with system memory. Yep, that
scaled up with fast memory is very interesting for traditional raster. So if they get ray tracing down, we'll see.
Yeah, and if they get the strong raster performance, just having DXR working, I think, is going to float them fine. But certainly, catching up with the refinement eventually will be important. But that rasterization, first and foremost, is where they need to make their entry.
Yeah, I think top of the stack needs to be software. They got to kick butt on the software side.
That's key. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no question about that. That's part of the package, and there's little question that if the hardware can be great, but if you don't nail the software, you're going to have issues. The software is a key component.
No one wants to deal with crashes.
Well, yeah, and then lack of functionality where competition has it. NVIDIA's done a really good job with DLSS. DLSS 2.0 is no joke. It's pretty solid technology. It's a great feature to get you back performance with little to no degradation in image quality. So Yeah, there's some stiff competition on the software side. Good point. What else, gentlemen? We missing anything?
I don't know. Let me run through the chat here. I think we kind of beat everything out of this discussion. I don't think we missed too much. You know, we had some comments earlier about number of cores. Also some comments about, you know, ideas on selling old hardware. And I think we're good. I think we're all caught up, guys. You know, we have a few more minutes. If you guys have any questions related to any of this or anything, anything really, you want to toss it at us before we say goodbye, now's your chance. You know, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, or Periscope, we have viewers on every platform right now. If you have something you want to ask, shoot it into the chat.
Yeah, fire away. And lots of stuff going on in the weeks ahead at Hot Hardware. I will tell you that. Stay tuned. I think you're gonna like the giveaway. It's gonna be fun. Can't say what it is. Can't say how it's dialed in, but cool stuff.
Time marches forward. We'll get there.
Yeah, and well, it'll be in the next few days. I think we're less than a week away. That's my guess before we announce. And by the way, I will say it's thoroughly gaming orientated. So if you're a gamer, you're gonna want to be in the mix on that. Yeah. And then make sure after we're done today, make sure you check out Val. She's coming up on our Twitch channel. Let me pull up the Twitch channel. By the way, I dropped that link in there. Val Rojas is Twitch streamer extraordinaire. Has been doing a great job for us. I'm gonna drop this in right now.
And we do have Raymond Jeffries asking if the NVIDIA ARM deal is still on track.
Good question. Excellent question. Yeah, that's a great one to fire in there. It is. And, you know, it's funny. Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, expressed, I forget exactly what his quote was, but he expressed confidence that the deal would go through, that it would be, you know, regulators would approve, and that the deal goes through. Meanwhile, there was a release from the UK government, a UK government body, and I'm again, I don't have that at my fingertips, where they were talking about basically moving to quash the deal. So the jury's still out.
On national security grounds.
Right. Yes, good. Thanks for remembering that. Yeah, there was like the issues of national security. They were taking issue with the deal, which I'm trying to figure out how that could be, but I guess you could see it. There's ARM core technology and a lot of stuff. US-based company. I don't know.
I think it's a stretch because ARM licenses their tech. So, and just quickly, we had Royal Lager ask ROCm support coming to RX 6000. Nothing set in stone, but it should be, is what we're hearing. And then we just had something come in that I missed discussion of AMD and Xilinx. You did not bring up Xilinx.
Yeah.
But that deal is going to happen most likely without a hiccup. I think shareholders on both sides or boards from both companies overwhelmingly voted yes. And Xilinx is another company that is doing extremely well right now, and it has some really compelling tech, and it's exactly what AMD needs to bolster their portfolio, especially in the data center, having all that, basically, the pinnacle of FPGA tech, is from Xilinx. So you didn't miss discussion, but that's more goodness all around for AMD.
I would thoroughly agree with that. Xilinx is, when you think about Intel acquired Altera, big FPGA house back in the day, and what they've done with that. I don't know. It seems like it hasn't been that integration still has work to be done between Intel and Altera, but Xilinx on its own is a serious innovator of solutions in a lot of different markets. Marco, you mentioned the data center, AI technologies. FPGAs are probably one of, if not the primary threat versus GPUs and AI data center applications. Autonomous vehicles and ADAS, self-driving or vehicle assist, driver assist technologies. Xilinx is really big in that as well, and they're big in 5G. These are markets that currently, 5G infrastructure. These are markets that currently AMD does not service, and so I think it's a great deal. I think once they fold that in, they get integrated, they get that up to speed. They're going to do some pretty good stuff with that. I think it's a good fit.
And we also failed to mention smart NICs, computer vision, encoding, data center encoding tech. Like, there is so much that AMD gains from Xilinx. Like, it is.
Yeah, it's really good.
There's tons and tons of stuff, and
masterful move.
Navjack mentioned, just let NVIDIA buy ARM already. I'm to the right of Attila the Hun on lots of economic issues. So part of me is like, if you got the money, let them buy it, let them do it. ARM is a real special deal though, because so many companies rely on licensing ARM's tech, and NVIDIA has said that will obviously continue. But NVIDIA will also have competitive offerings to lots of ARM's customers. So there's a different dynamic there that is tough for some companies to digest. So there's lots to consider. But I want to see what NVIDIA does with that tech too. I'm on the fence. I don't know where I fall on this one.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch if it goes through. I think there's lots of dynamics there. I think NVIDIA is pretty aggressive, so some folks will lose, but I also think they have to be good stewards a little to a certain degree of the IP portfolio and the model that exists today, because you can't just blow that up. That would hurt them as well. James Pryor makes a really good, funny statement. He works for the company, by the way. I agree. Everyone go RISC-V with Sci-5. He works for Sci-5, and RISC-V is interesting technology, new open source core technology that you should check out if you don't know anything about it. Google it, check it out. Interesting stuff. Go ahead, Marco.
We probably have to run, but the most important question of the whole podcast just came in.
Oh,
when will Marco play COD with Val? I think the better question is, when will Val play Left 4 Dead with me?
I'm sure she'll play less. She plays anything, dude. She's really good too.
No,
she learns quick.
I'm such what I think I'm like 9 years in playing Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2. And I'm the worst person to play with because I'm such a bitter curmudgeon and I hate playing with noobs and I love torturing them when they play with me. So I think it'd be fun to play with Val.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we're gonna have Val probably join forces with Brittany and maybe Chris, because you guys are big Destiny 2 fans. You guys dig into that. And I told Val, I said, go download the game and get into it, because you guys will be teaming up for that. So there'll be lots of gaming going on the HotHardware Twitch channel. And then eventually I think we may multi-stream to YouTube as well. But we're trying to build the Twitch audience, and lots of good game streaming fun coming up. And we should probably close it out on that note, right, gentlemen?
Yeah, we have JH asking, do game developers want a new GPU? Intel, if you look at the Steam survey, so many people's game on Intel GPUs, they're not really new. They're new and discrete. But I think they're going to have unified software. There will be some tweaks game developers have to make, but it's not they're not going to have to blow things up to support Intel properly.
Yeah. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss kind of thing.
So in 21's Red Alert Remastered. So I never played the original Red Alert, but I played so much Red Alert 2, it kind of makes me sick. So I really want that, the remaster. And we'll see.
And with that, on that note, we should probably bid you adieu. Make sure you stop by hothardware.com, where you can find us on the web, twitter.com/hothardware, youtube.com/hothardware vids. And then again, it's Val's here. Look at, she's giving us the
Shaka.
The Shaka baby. Yeah. So I don't know about the Shocker, but it's the hang loose.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. So she's coming up at 7:30, game streaming for a couple hours. She is great. Val Rojas, check her out at Hot Hardware Twitch. I just linked the channel, and hit thumbs up and subscribe. We need to have you with us. Hit the reminder bell when you do get notified that we're going live, so that it pings you. And with that, we should probably thank you for stopping by, right, gentlemen?
Yeah, man. Goodbye, everybody.
Take care. Thanks, everyone. Stay tuned for Val.